Tilea's Troubles, Part 33, Spring 2402, Part 4 of 5, All that I could learn, a letter sent from Remas. This to Lord Lucia Vescucci of Varezzo. My most noble lord, I pray to all the lawful gods that you are blessed with good health and prosperity, and that you will accept and welcome this dispatch as a truthful insight into events to the west of your realm. Knowing full well how you wished for improved intelligence concerning the Arabian mercenaries encamped at Lucini, I took it upon myself to travel there in the months of winter, and found a city well prepared for war. Yet it is a war unlikely to come. In preparation to fight Cernag's mighty wag, King Ferenzo increased the fighting strength of his forces considerably, not least by purchasing the Southlandish Sons of the Desert, an entire army of mercenaries, with foot and horse, handguns, crossbows, and spears. It is now reported that the wag has been broken and scattered by the Marienburger mercenaries currently occupying Alcente, which leaves the young king of Lucini at a loss concerning how to play with his soldiers. If the city of Lucini were further to the north, and thus closer to the terrors there, then certainly the boy king would not feel bereft of enemies. But as his city lies so far south, with the great states of Remas and Porto Maggiore lying betwixt it and the undead threat, then that particular fear has yet to take a deep root in the young king's mind. So it is that Lucini now finds itself playing host to an expensive army of Arabians it could well do without. Of course, King Ferenzo cannot risk refusing to pay them, for the consequences could be ruinous. Such men would not hesitate to extract by cruel force all that they were owed, and more besides, in a process likely to tear the city apart. As the boy king's own militia forces are greatly outnumbered by these mercenaries, then he could not hope to use them to maintain order. In the dark hours of the night, when many Lucinans are red-faced and reeling in the flickering light of tavern fires, it is a common joke that soon there will be a caliphate here in Tilea, just like in ancient times, and that all native-born inhabitants are doomed to become little more than slaves to their new masters. And so the mercenaries do what such men enjoy most, swaggering through the streets, heavily armed, terrifying children and maids, while happily satisfied that they need not fight in the morrow, nor indeed for some considerable time to come. The mercenaries' general, Gedik Mamidou, is apparently in no rush to leave, and he rules an entire quarter of the city as if he is chief magistrate and mayor. I myself witnessed him holding court, surrounded by desert warriors in serried ranks, sheltered from the sun by a delicate silken parasol. Merchants and traders vied for his attention, for there is profit to be made in the supplying of well-paid mercenaries' wants and desires. These are not only Tilean merchants, however, but ever more of his own countrymen, who no doubt now find it much easier to trade with Lucini, what with such a host of Arabians quartered there. I cannot say for certain, as such men as these have no reason to converse with the likes of me, and I possess not a single word of their strange tongue. But it seems to me that a general as experienced as Mamidou would not sit idly as time passed, knowing that when his contract ends, the Lucinians will surely be glad to cease paying him. Perhaps he is already considering how to extract more money from them at that time, in return for their continued protection, no longer against greenskins, but against his own soldiers. Perhaps he is already involved in negotiations with another Tilean state, or an even more distant realm, in order to acquire a new contract. It must be considered possible, however, especially in light of the significant threat to the north, that whatever his current dealings, Mamidou might intend, at the first hint of real trouble, to return whence he came. Unwilling to tarry where I could learn little more, I made arrangements to journey to the city of Remas by way of the sea. Being well travelled, I know better than to put much stock in mariners' tales. Yet upon several occasions I heard the sailors talk of unusual sightings. I made a point of questioning as many as possible, so as to compare their accounts, and came to the conclusion that it is more likely than not that there is truth in what they said. They have espied, with their own eyes, and on several many occasions, ratto uomo slave galleys of massive size and usually in groups of no less than half a dozen. These sightings occurred upon the Tilean Sea and even close to the coast. No one claimed to have been attacked, but several muttered about ships going missing and glimpses of scuttling spies sneaking about in the docks. As to whether these events are due to another civil war among the ratmen, or preparations for some newly wicked enterprise, I know not, nor was there any reason to suspect anything in particular. Nevertheless, it seems to me that you ought to be informed. Upon arrival in Remas, I was surprised to discover no sign of the legions of holy warriors I had expected. In truth, however, I think it unlikely that any who do intend to respond to the Archlector's call can have both mustered together and completed the journey in the short time available. As for the Remans, if I may venture my own humble analogy, it seems to me that they are like actors before a play begins. Many speak of those who are coming, alive and undead, as if they are the heroes and villains who shall take to the stage. They are much busied with fashioning the set for the drama, repairing the city's ancient defences, and practising their military drill and postures from the earliest hour of the day. Martial law reigns in the streets, which swarm with the provost's officers and common informers, in readiness perhaps for the rowdy crowds of holy warriors expected shortly. Furthermore, as you so wisely predicted to me before my departure, it is indeed the case that the Archlector of the Church of More once again rules supreme in the city, wholly governing matters military, civil, and spiritual. He has become director of all. Perhaps as a consequence more of the Archlector's return to full power than the great emergency, there are changes afoot. Remus's famous army of foreign mercenaries is no longer so purely alien. A new artillery company has been raised, and a baggage guard, both of whom consist entirely of Reman citizens, wearing the city's traditional orange and blue livery. They are listed merely as new companies of the Palace Guard, but it is plain to all that they are more suited to support a large army in the field than to stand duty at gates and doors. I was intrigued to learn that in response to the great emergency, the renowned maestro Angelo da Leone had laid down his painting brushes and turned his famous intelligence to the matter of engines of war once again, as he did in his more youthful years. Eager to see exactly what he was working on, I made my way to his workshop, where, unsurprisingly, I discovered that already the great inventor's efforts were being encouraged by the Archlector, for palace guardsmen guarded the workshop and the yard in which da Leone laboured. Not that the guards were particularly keen to keep the maestro's work secret, rather to ensure simply that he could go about it undisturbed. In fact, they were happy that those who came might look through the open gates to observe the efforts being made, and indeed the city's streets are already rife with gossip about the deadly engine and how exactly it will help defeat the foe. Such debate raises the people's spirits. No doubt the Archlector intended from the start that it should do so. I myself cannot claim to have the mechanical understanding to guess at the workings of the machine, so I will simply explain what I saw. The maestro himself was present when I visited, book in hand, as he gave instructions to the mechanical craftsmen labouring upon his creation. He is a stout, stern-looking fellow in his old age, no longer anything like the youthful figure shown in the self-portrait in your lordship's palace. He too, like most of the workers in the yard, wore the Archlector's livery, as well as a chain of office, which I later learned signified his rank as a general of artillery. The machine itself had a heart of iron, enclosed in a growing case of timber. Large wheels lay strewn about the yard, presumably yet to be attached, although some wheels were of solid iron, akin to those contained within the workings of a clock, though bigger by far than any I have ever seen. I could discern no sign of armament, neither artillery pieces, nor rams, nor even a platform upon which fighting men might be carried. Although it is probable such things will be added later, I would not dare to suggest that they most definitely will. For all I know, some sort of flail is to be fashioned, or perhaps a concoction of scything blades, like those described in the stories of goblin pump wagons. so that it can cut a swathe of destruction through the enemy's ranks and files. Certainly, the people of Remas seem happy to make all these suggestions and more. My eyes lingered upon what I presumed to be the driving part of this machine. It consists of a great iron kettle, shaped somewhat like a large barrel, out of which sprout arms, wheels, and stove-like extensions. I saw no tiller, nor any obvious harness for a team of horses, but instead what I supposed was a form of windlass or capstan, despite the lack of any evident cable to wind. It seemed to me that the whole was some time from completion, although I cannot say whether more work is being done elsewhere, behind closed doors, so that like a firearm is composed of the joining of barrel, stock, and lock, perhaps several parts will come together quite quickly to complete this novelty. Every day the Archlector receives emissaries from foreign states, some to show their support for the great and holy war, some merely to make promises concerning the same, but most to beg for aid against the foe. A large delegation of Urbinans plead daily and openly for forces to defend them, now that the foe's foul dominion borders their home. Remas also plays host to the celebrated heroes of the Viadasan crusade, who at such great a cost felled the vampire duke and drove back his army to buy time for the rest of Tilea. General D'Alessio has declared himself entirely willing to lead the new holy army to victory, while the lector of Viadaza, Bernardo Ugolini, is hosted by the Archlector and is daily in conference with him concerning how best to thwart the foe. I shall remain here in Remas into the spring, all the better to observe how the great holy war fares, and I will, at every opportunity, send letters to you concerning further developments. I remain your most loyal and obedient servant, Antonio Mugello. Part 5 of 5, itself in 3 parts. Gladius mori super terram cito et velocita. The sword of More, striking and swift. A square in Trantio.
"What have you got here, then?"
bellowed Giovicino as he swaggered unsteadily from the alley, still clutching the wine jug responsible for his current inebriation. His words boomed around the little square, where 4 more Pavonan soldiers stood, around the kneeling and pathetically hunched form of a man in the blue and maroon livery of the Compagnia del Sole. Several Trantian bystanders watched from under the jettying beams of the square's main attraction, an alehouse, as Giovacchino strode up to join his comrades. His stockings hung loose upon his calves, while his hat tottered upon his head at so heavy an angle it was a wonder it was still attached.
"Got yourself a prisoner, eh?"
he asked.
"Big deal. Should have gone down there with me for richer pickings. What I have here is worth its weight in silver."
He jangled the clattering contents of his sack to prove his point.
"Because,"
he paused momentarily for effect,
"it is silver. What you've got is worth only its weight in dirt."
A whimpering sound came from the prisoner, expressing either fear or helplessness, or a potent combination of the two. Giovicino smiled in a self-satisfied manner, rolling his eyes mockingly, too drunk to care how annoying he would appear.
"Shut it, Chino,"
said Mariano, his own slurred voice sounding no less drunk.
"He ain't told us all we need to know yet. We don't want you upsetting him all unnecessary." "Why?" said Giovacchino loudly. "What you after? Is it good stuff? Does he know where there's more?"
"We can find that out later," said Aldous, sombre and sober, despite having drunk as much, if not more, than the 2 much louder soldiers. Although quiet, he was the sort of man who was always heard. His stern face suited him, for he did bloody work in battle. A soldier's soldier is what many called him, and he always seemed to have his wits about him, whether fighting or drinking. His present sobriety was all the more impressive considering the blood he had lost from the head wound received during the assault upon the city. The others were all now looking at him. "Right now," he said, "he needs to tell us where his friends are hiding."
"It don't look to me," said
Giovacchino,
"like he's in a conversational frame of mind."
I can make him talk, offered Carlo, prodding the squatting captive's head with the muzzle of the handgun he had kept trained on him ever since they found him. And if he don't talk, then I can shoot him to teach his friends what happens when they don't cooperate. The whimper was heard again, no different from the last time. Mariano raised his hand abruptly, spilling wine from the goblet he had forgotten he was holding. It was perhaps intended as a gesture to silence the others, but instead looked more like he was about to make a toast. He addressed the cowering man.
We're not going to have to shoot you, though, are we? Because you're going to tell us where your friends are.
They'll be coming out either way, added Carlo, whether you're alive or not. For you, it's better they come out now. This time the whimper had words wound into it.
Just me. It's just me.
Then a woman's voice was heard, and everyone turned in surprise, more wine being spilled as a consequence. It was a serving wench who had been watching from the start, who had, until the captive was discovered, been busy fetching Mariano's wine. It's true. He's on his own. Him and 2 others were hiding in the old cellar, maybe since the fall. We didn't know anyone was down there till last night when his friends ran out. My master told the watch. He went to tell whoever the watch tell. They've been drinking down there, drowning their sorrows on foul beer too long in the cask. He got left behind. We only found him this morning. I don't think he could get up the ladder. If that's so, then he's no use to us, declared Carlo. He blew upon the burning coals at the end of his slow match and opened his pan. May as well. Wait, Aldous snapped. You're not shooting him. He's not our enemy. Not any more. Carlo snorted cruelly. Why? Just because he's cowering there unarmed and afraid? You know what the Compagnia del Sole have done. You've got a new scar to make sure you never forget. I never thought you such a compassionate soul, Aldous. Aldous showed no sign of offence at Carlo's words, speaking only with his usual seriousness and with the ever-present hint of potential threat. Because the Duke has offered employment to the last of the Compagnia del Sole, Aldous said. Now that his realm has swelled to such a great size, he needs soldiers. And that, he gestured toward the prone captive, despite appearances, is a soldier. Mariano snorted a laugh.
Of course, of a sort. I say kill him. Haven't you heard what his kind have done, and only yesterday? How they killed a priest to rob him of his beads and robes, the better to disguise themselves.
I heard, said Carlo gravely. We're the army of More the Supreme. We've won victory after victory in his name, being both favoured and blessed, and obviously so. While this man's fellows, defeated in battle by More's own will, chose to deny his judgment and kill More's priests in petty revenge. Giovacchino, having drained the last drop of wine from his jug, wiped the back of his hand across his lips and frowned. Mariano, what in More's name are you talking about? What priest? The Archlector didn't just send a priest to Duke Guidobaldo to beg him to end the war against Trantio because of the vampires in the north, said Mariano,
but sent another to ask the same of the tyrant Prince Gorenzo. The second priest arrived too late, though, didn't he? What with Prince Gorenzo being dead. Still, can't complain, as it was a happy ending after all, the war being ended already.
So what did the second priest do? Asked Giovacchino, growing frustrated. Mariano rolled his eyes.
You don't listen, do you, Chino? I already told you. He got himself killed on his way back to Remas by Compagnia scum like him. Brave men, eh? Killing a priest and his servants with no soldiers to guard them. Still, they've got their comeuppance. Some of our boys found them prancing about in priestly robes and killed every one of them. True judgment and justice, I say. Swift and summary, too.
Carlo nodded. By More's justice it was done, for we are his hand. Well, it so happens More is holding a handgun right now. He once again blew on the coals to clear the ash and make the saltpetered match fizzle with heat. Give rest to your piece, ordered Aldous, who, as corporal, had every right so to command. We serve Duke Guidobaldo first, while his grace answers to More. We're the Duke's soldiers, not his magistrates. And if you like, then yes, we're More's holy warriors too. Doesn't make us his inquisitors, though. Tell your stories around the campfires as you wish, and believe them too for all I care. But never forget that we are sworn to obey, and that's what we will do. We have orders. Now pick him up, tie his hands, and let's go. Il reggimento e il governo della città di Trantio, the rule and government of the city of Trantio. Udite, udite, a proclamation to be read to all those who dwell in the villages of Prato and the town of Scorchio, by order of His Grace Duke Guidobaldo Gondi, ruler of Pavona, Trantio and Astiano, most obedient servant of More the Supreme. I rule by right of conquest. The palace is mine, the city is mine. I command all the forces remaining in the realm, and all officers bow to me and obey my commands and mine alone. You have thus become my subjects, just as you were subjects of the tyrant I have defeated. Fear me in the way all lesser folk should respect their masters. Do not be too fearful, for I would have you know that you will be kept safe from the threat in the north under my rule. As long as you obey my commands and my laws, I can and will defend this my realm from all outside evil. If, however, you resist, deny, or in any way hinder any part of my lawful and rightful authority, then I shall burn unto the ground your homes and fields, and leave you homeless and starving to face the evils that this way come. Alone and weak, helpless before the foe, you will surely perish at their hands. And this will be right and just, for you will have the mark of traitors upon you. Furthermore, you will have refused the protection of the supreme god More. Be not sad, however, nor let angry pride rule your hearts, for all this is only temporary. Indeed, rejoice, for my rule is merely a brief necessity. By my own son's sacrifice, the tyrant Prince Gorenzo is defeated and slain, and to honour my son's memory, as well as the fair traditions of the realm of Trantio, I intend to settle the rule of law upon this realm, and then promise to revive the glorious republic of old. It is not the way of things in my own realm of Pavona, for there I rule by my noble blood and hereditary right. But here in Trantio I accept the precedent of history, and thus the right of Trantians to govern themselves, to debate in their committees, to vote in the councils, and so to create their own laws and decide their own fate. Yet this cannot be done immediately, for first all taints of the tyrant prince's corruption must be washed from Trantio. Once this is achieved, I shall leave the reins of power in the hands of a lawfully elected council. Furthermore, I shall ease the transition by having my own surviving son, Lord Silvano, serve as the first Gonfaloniere of Trantio, to chair the ruling council and to command the realm's military forces. This may seem to go against historical precedent, for the office of Gonfaloniere has previously been an elected one, but it is a necessary, if temporary, means to ensure the safe transfer of power and the steady establishment of a new republic, and it will ensure my continued support and alliance until all is well again in Tilea and Trantio. The realm of Trantio must be defended against the terrible forces marching from the north. What better and more certain way is there to do so than to forge a strong, even unbreakable alliance between the realms of Trantio and Pavona, by having the love of father and son bond the two together? So it is that I have the welfare of Trantio wholly in mind. Woe betide any and all who think to thwart these my plans, either to stir rebellion or fail to do all they can to support the cause of Trantio's defence. Any who do will feel the full weight of my wrath. Furthermore, I have taken steps to ensure the care of your souls, elevating the priest Father Urquhart to the clerical office of Lector of Trantio, so that all within the Trantine diocese can rest assured that the Church will be in safe and holy hands whilst facing the direct threat of the necromancy of vampires. These things are done in the name of the mighty and supreme God of gods More. Praise him, thank him, and obey his servants, as they work to make Tilea blessed in his eyes. The beating of solemn drums, the western spur of the Trantine hills. Lord Polcario Gondi, heir to the Duchy of Pavona, was dead. He died a hero in single combat against no less a foe than a prince, whom he slew even as he himself was slain, thereby gaining the final victory for Pavona in its war of vengeance against Trantio. Duke Guidobaldo ordered that his son would not be buried in Trantio, but in the Gondi family tomb. Considering the rise of the undead in the north, great care was taken to ensure not only that Lord Polcario's body was carried thence with dignity, but was guarded well, to prevent any attempt by the agents of vampires to steal it and use it for their own foul purposes. The column included several ensigns, each from regiments once commanded by the young lord. 8 drummers marched too, 4 before the coffin and 4 behind, beating a funerary march most sombre and solemn, while a single flute added a plaintive bird-song melody of singularly sad beauty. The carriage upon which the coffin lay was decorated with the blue and white of Pavona, and so too were the draught horses pulling it. 8 of the best halberdiers Pavona had to offer marched by its sides, while Lord Polcario's own personal standard followed behind, unlike in life when it would go before him, sloped in the traditional manner of mourning. Slowly, but surely, the little procession made its way south towards the Via Aurelia, upon which Lord Polcario would travel the last stretch of this, his final journey through the mortal realm of Tilea. The creaking of the wheels conjoined with the sorrowful sound of drums and flute, while every man present, as ordered, maintained strict silence.